Hello friends, let's learn about the Unit 4 calculation context, which is the most important part of the our course report design 2. So calculation context is very important to understand because it is being used in a more of complex projects and more of complex documents which is created. So it's very important to understand this concept. So let's learn about this, what is calculation context. So lesson first one is about calculation context. So what is calculation context? If you see this report is having this measure sales revenue based on a city. So the measures, these values is actually calculated based on the city and year, as this report is sectioned by year and city. So for the 2005 year, what is the city? Boston. For Boston, what is the sales revenue? So this sales revenue value is determined by the combination of these two values, like year and city. So this combination of the dimensions is nothing but the calculation context or the context. So if you see this report, it is having section total, this is having a report total or a block total, block footer total, like this. So let's see means what is the context for each value. If you see report total, so report total is nothing but this is the report total. So total of all revenues in the report. So this is the context. So whatever the values here, like if you see these three, or if there are more years then 2006 or 7 like that, then for that years whatever the values that will be calculated and will be displayed at the bottom of the report. So that is nothing but the report total. So for that the context is these values. Okay, coming to the section header total. See this section header total, for this section header total the context is year, because for this year this is the sales revenue total. Then coming to this value, sales revenue total. So for this the context is city and year. So the first criteria is year and then second is city. For year and city, this is the values, that is sales revenue. So context for the sales revenue values is year and city. Now coming to the block footer total. So this block footer is based on the year. So for this year, this is the total value, total sales revenue. So for this the context is year. So whatever the values which is calculated based on the dimensions, so that combination of the dimensions is nothing but the context. So this is all about the default context. Now we can redefine this calculation context. So there are two types of calculation context: input and output context. So input context includes additional objects in the calculation to aggregate the results at finer level of detail. So input context will take into consideration the objects, while output context will take the objects out of the calculation to aggregate the results. Okay, so both are opposite things. Input will take into the consideration the objects, output will remove the objects from the calculation. So the calculation context is the data that calculation takes into the account to generate the results. This means value given by measure is determine the dimensions used to calculate the measure. There are two kind of objects available in the reports. One is dimensions and the other one is measures. So dimensions represent business data that generate figures, like example store outlets, region, state, city, customer name, like that. Measures, which are numerical data that are generated by dimensions data, for example revenue, number of sales, quantity sold, then margin. These are nothing but measures. Now let's come to the input and output context. So if you see, this is input context is a set of dimensions used to make the calculation, while output context is a set of dimensions that functions like a break in the calculation. It causes the calculation to output the values as if they are calculated in the footer of a table break. Now we can force the input calculation context. How we can force? Say section header and block footers, whatever the values there, it has input context as year. So sales revenue by year, we saw that report which has this sales revenue on year, and rows in a block, it has year and city or customer as the input context. So what we can do, when we explicitly specify this in the formula, how we can specify sum of revenue in year. So whatever the revenue which is getting calculated, it will be calculated based on the year only, or sum of revenue in year on customer. So that will means we can explicitly mention that based on the year and customer only calculate that revenue. So this is the way we can force the input calculation context. Now force the output context. How we can force? So output context causes the formula to output a value if it is placed in the footer of a block containing a break. So suppose there is a break is applied. Suppose this is the one report which is displaying year, quarter and sales revenue. So it is a break on year, and it is displaying some minimum values at the end of the each year. Okay. Now, so if you want to show minimum requirement by a year without break, what is the way, means how we can add, means if you want to show minimum revenue by year without a break, because this report which is available here, this report is displaying the revenue, minimum revenue by year. So for 2005, what is the minimum revenue, that is shown in here. For 2005, what is the minimum revenue, that is shown in here. That for 2006, it is shown here. But if I want to show without a year, means I want to show minimum year revenue for each year, then how we can force? So minimum of revenue in year. So for each year, it is the minimum revenue. If you see on each row, I wanted to show. So 2004 without break, means I don't want a break, but I want to show minimum revenue on each row. If you see the value which is coming here, minimum 1367841 is same as this one. If you see for complete year 2004, this way it will show that, means we can force the input means output context without break 2005. So this is a kind of or similar to break function. See, this formula is like minimum of sales revenue in year or quarter in year. So it is a outputting. So this yellow color objects which is mentioned here in year is nothing but outputting by year. Okay. So sales revenue, it will calculate by year and quarter. This is sales revenue. Out of this sales revenue, I wanted to take a minimum of sales revenue, and it will output by year. So that will specify in this column. Okay, coming to lesson 3, implementing extended syntax operator. There are extended syntax operators as well we can use for input and output context explicitly with context operator of the extended syntax. Now, what are the extended syntax operator? Operator in, for each and for all. If you see these three operators, it will specify an explicit list of dimensions to use in the context. This is nothing but the input context, we can say. For each, it will add dimensions to the default output default context. For all, removes dimensions from the default context. We will see in this detail. The for all and for each operators are useful when you have a default context with many dimensions. It is easier to add or subtract from the context using the for all and for each than it is to specify the list explicitly using the in operator. Now let's understand this report to understand these operators. So this is the report with the sales revenue by year. It is break on year, quarter and sales revenue, displaying max on each year. Now we can apply in context operator with the additional dimensions. So how we can apply? See, max of sales revenue in year or quarter and in year. This will calculate the maximum sales revenue for each year quarter combination, then output this figure by year. See, max quarter for 2004, so this is the maximum value. For 2005 this is the maximum value, and 2006 this is the maximum value. So whatever the values here it was getting, so that we can display in max with using in operator. So this will calculate the revenue by based on the year on quarter sales revenue, and it will output the data by year. This is max quarterly sales. Now we can add where operator as well. Suppose I just wanted to display the data based on some of the conditions in particular measure. So the where operator restrict the data used to calculate the measure. So I can just calculate the average where country is equal to US. So for country US I wanted to take an average, so I can add average. I can add this condition as where country is equal to US. I can add other country is equal to US or country is equal to France, like that. Multiple conditions we can put in a where condition like this. Max value as well I can take it. Now coming to the context operator for each. So what for each operator adds dimension to a context. Suppose I wanted to add calculate the max quarterly sales based on the year and quarter and one more objects, then I can add this as well. So let's see means how we can do this using the in operator to get max quarterly revenue. See, this max of sales revenue in year, quarter, in year. So what this does, it will takes the maximum sales revenue by year and quarter, and it will display the output by year. Now this same can be achieved with the for each operator. So for each operator and in operator does the same functionality. So how it is, max of sales revenue for each quarter. So it will take the data for each quarter as max of sales value in year. You can add quarter to the context given an input context of year or quarter. So this is the way we can add for each operator. Now coming to the context operator for all, this will remove the dimension from a context. For each adds the dimensions to the context, while for all removes the dimensions from a context. Now see, this is the report which is showing sales revenue and yearly total. So how this can be achieved? So total revenues by year, the input context must be year. By default it is year or quarter. Okay, then we can remove the quarter dimension from the context using for all operator, means just to calculate revenue on year. So sum of sales revenue for all quarter, the same can be achieved using in operator as well, but the only thing is I just wanted to add context with the year only, then I will say in year, and if I wanted to remove quarter from the context, I just say for all, because sometimes it is easy to remove one of the objects if there are more objects. There are 4 objects, and out of that I just wanted to remove one object. So for the at that time I can use for all. But if I wanted to add more objects, then I will use in objects as in operator as well. Okay, so this way this will give sales revenue. So for this yearly total, it will exclude this quarter, but it will just give the data by year. Okay, so coming to the lesson 4, which is about the implementing extended syntax keywords. So this is again implementing means extended syntax keywords which are useful and are form of a shorthand that allows us to refer to a dimensions in the extended syntax without specifying those dimensions explicitly. So sometimes we just don't need to mention or don't need to specify the dimensions explicitly. We can use these keywords, extended keywords like body, block, break, report, section, and we can achieve the results which are we wanted. So now how we can add it. So first keyword is body keyword. So the context where we are placing determines the data which they calculating. So suppose I am sum of sales revenue I am putting in a block, then it will display the data in a block. If I am putting a block break, header or footer, then it will display the data in block. If I am putting in a section, then it will display in a section. Now if I said outside any block or section, then it will display data in a report. So this is a example, sum of sales revenue in body. Suppose see in body, that means whatever the data is available here, it will display as is. See, if I say I wanted to add this value in a break, so it will give the data in a break. If I put this formula in body in a section, at section or top level, then it will give the data in a section, and outside any block or section, which will give data in a report. So this is about body keyword. Then coming to the block keyword. So how block keyword means when placed in, so suppose this, how we can use average of sales revenue in section, average of sales revenue in a block. So this, when we place in a block, it will give the data in a whole block, ignoring breaks respecting filters. Block break, header or footer, data in the whole block, ignoring breaks and respecting filters. A section and outside any block or section, it is not applicable because it is restricted to the block, or it is just a block keyword. It will not applicable to other outside block. So that's why it is. See, if is sum of, if you see, this is yearly average and first half average. So in a block, so it will calculate this quarter 1 quarter 2 data. The first half is means nothing but is for these two values, whatever the average, and for the yearly average will be for the complete year, what is the average, that it will show up here. Coming to the break keyword. So again break, how we can apply sum of sales revenue in break. So this is again in break. So when we place in a block, it will data in display the data in the part of the block delimited by a block. Then block break, it will display the data in the part of the block delimited by break, and in section and outside of any block or section, it is not applicable. So coming to this data in this part of the block delimited by block, it will be applicable to this section, sum of sales revenue in break. Okay, so coming to the section keyword, when placed in a block, if you see, this is an example where sum of sales revenue in a section. So whatever the data it is getting calculated, sales revenue, so it will reference all data in a section. So suppose this sales revenue is placed in a block. So this is a block where I wanted to place the sales revenue in a block. So it will display the data in a block. So it will references this data. If I placing the sales revenue in a block break, then it will display the data in section, all data in section. If I am placing this keyword in a section, then it will display all data in a section, and outside any block or section, it is not applicable because it will not give any data outside block or section. So in this example, if you see section total, I wanted to have need section total based on the section for particular year. So see, if this is a total, so for each row means I wanted to show the data, so it will give this data. The total is getting displayed here based on the section. Okay, coming to the last keyword, which is about the report keyword. So in this report keyword, this wherever we place, it will give the data for all reports. Suppose this is 2004, 5, 6, this for 3 years, the data is getting displayed. So whatever the values, see, suppose this is the total value and I am placing this sum of sales or revenue in report. So for all the years on each row it will display the same data. So this is nothing but report keyword. So wherever we place, when anywhere we place block, break, section, or outside any block or section, it will display the data in the which is available in the report. Okay, so this is about the keywords. Now we come to an end of this unit. Let's check on our understanding. Means what are the ways to demonstrate the ways of controlling a calculation. What is input context, then which are the extended syntax operators. Let's see, means what are the ways to demonstrate the ways of controlling a calculation. Changing the location of the calculation in the report, changing the dimensions included within the calculation in the block, and forcing the level of aggregation. So we saw about forcing input and output context, how we can force. Then what is input context? It is the list of dimensions that are calculated in the calculation itself. Okay, input context is basically adds the dimensions to the calculation. Output context will force the output force the objects from the calculation. And what are the extended syntax operators? So it is block, section, break, body, and reports. Actually these are the 5 extended syntax keywords available we can use. Okay, so this is all about the calculation context. If you have any questions, if any point is not clear, then please post it in the comment section. I will happy to clear it, your doubts, anything, or you have any questions, then you can post it so that I will able to answer it. And if you like my video, then please like it, and if you subscribe to my video as well, so that you will get to notify about my next videos. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you.